Hadeland started recording.
All right, it is 8:10 on Thursday, June 30th, 2016, and we are beginning the bi-weekly Council of Crowns session. So we'll just give a quick recap on who's here. I am Hadeland, the Northreach Monarch, and I am present. If you guys want to do a quick introduction, who you are, where you're from.
I'm Rage. I am the Sheriff of Ravenstone.
I'm Minnie. I'm the Duke of Astral Winds.
Goran, Duke of Lupin Moon.
I'm Rose Death from the Barony of Frozen Coast.
I don't know if you're trying to talk Adeline, but we can't hear anything.
She's having technical difficulties.
Brutal.
Channel, Hadeland, my push to talk ISNG working. Goran started recording.
Yeah. That's awesome, though, Rage, that the Highline games were super rad. I wish we had a better car so we could have driven down there.
Rosedath moved to spectators and discussion.
No, it was a
Rose Death
blast,
entered
and
channel.
the organizers really
Hadeland
loved our
stopped
booth,
recording.
so they're willing to give us a better space next year, and I'm like, yay! And we sold so many swords that we had to start taping them at the booth, and it was kind of a haberdash sort of taping, but we couldn't finish covering the pommels and the handles fast enough for people to buy them.
Oh,
It was crazy.
That's the dream, though.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. I don't think Hadeline was
Hadeland
either.
entered channel.
I think she had to run out first day and go buy more tape, and then we had to tape them and keep taping them until the second day. And we finally ran out of tape, and we only had like, I want to say 10 swords left on the wall taped by the end of the day.
That was good. It was a very successful event.
Yeah, I think it'll be really successful, especially since it's like a week, 2 weeks after the Ren Fair, for it to be kind of, if Ren Fair is slow, to be the pickup time for Ren Fair.
So
it'll catch that windfall a little bit.
Yeah, my understanding was like the Highland games there this year were like part of the rotated to be like the fanciest
channel.
Like the international one. Is that so?
Yeah,
there were more people there
moved
this time
the
than usual.
international heavy contest at this one. So all the guys that were like the really heavyweights that threw like telephone poles for cabers and stuff like that were there. It was pretty cool. And I know that Astriana had 2 students there competing for solo pipes in the junior division, and they took first and second. So that was pretty cool as well.
Well, that's fantastic.
Hadeland entered channel.
It was a little soggy day 2. We got a little bit rained out of our tent because we were staying on site with everything. But other than that, we were worried on day 2 because of the rain that nobody was going to show up, but we still had a line of kids down the fence line for the fighting arena and parents buying swords, and it was amazing.
Hadeland, not really.
Hadeland Mobile entered channel.
Test.
Yeah, that's legit.
Hello?
Yep, good, loud and clear.
Hola, Your Highness.
All right, we'll try this again. We were doing a thing where we were talking about something, and I don't remember what it was. I think we were just finishing roll call.
Yep, we had just done roll call. The only person we didn't talk about absent members.
Okay. So the only monarch that we're missing this evening is Hazel from Icefire Bay. So, but the rest of us are here. Hooray! All right, so corporal review status also sort of rolls into June all thing item as well, since we just did our big 31 item all thing in June for the BAM documents. Have you guys had an opportunity to look at the sections that I sort of pulled out as, I don't know, moderate to high dissent items?
Yes.
I've reviewed them.
Yes, actually, I have.
Okay, so we haven't really had much of an opportunity to chat about those yet. I also went through and through the forums and tagged those areas so that we could look at the sort of comments that had been posted in the forums previous in regards to those sections. So I don't know, do you guys want to go over those one by one this evening?
We can.
Yeah, we can't. I honestly don't know that it's necessary. Like, I feel like
I'm with Vinny on that one.
I feel like the local monarchs know what their groups voted on. Like, no, you know what I mean? Like the numbers of people that voted no, and we should just kind of leave it up to them. And if it becomes a thing where we're like, oh, well, we need the whole council to weigh in on this, like we would go with that.
Yeah, I think most of the dissent or split votes came from my park.
Well, we had some from ours too, but we talked about that a little bit in the Council of Crowns,
Yeah.
so I'll talk to him on Saturday.
Yours was just the one item, though, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, I had like a half a dozen where I had 5 to 8 people that would vote no out of the 30 or so that we had there.
I do have a message from Siggy who says that she would like to hear it, but she would said that a write-up would be fine too. So I know that I saw the post, but I don't know if it was in the main Northreach thing or there it is actually. So it might be worth just reposting that or bumping it up to the top so that people can see it again.
Okay, yeah, that's a good thing. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sections that had 5 or more no votes. I kind of went with 5 because there was a rough average of 50 people that voted on each item. Some were as low as 43 and some were as high as 55. So I figured 5 was roughly 10%. It's not super scientific, but it needed some sort of cutoff point. And the rest of them all had fewer than 5 no votes. So I feel like content-wise, those are pretty solid. A couple of them were just at the 5 mark. One that was really high in dissenting votes was the Children in Amtgard, Appendix 1, I think it was. That one had 11 no votes, which is creeping up towards 20%. So I think that one's probably worth discussing as a council to hear, various opinions, what you've heard in your park, and sort of potential ways to move forward with that.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that the change that's happening there is that currently the approval for whether or not someone that is under 14 years of age can fight on the field during battle games and such like that is up to the local park monarchs, whereas in the proposed system, it would be up to a determination by the Council of Crowns, correct?
I'm pretty sure that's the sticking point as well. Yeah.
What's the, I guess just that we're like more clear even, like what is the, is it like a simple majority for Council of Crowns votes to make that a thing, or is it unanimous?
It would be a majority, is a council vote.
Okay.
I'm pulling up the documents right now just to see if it said anything specifically in there as far as unanimous or majority, just so that's super clear.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, I mean, I guess I'll kind of weigh in on it. Like, we have a lot of people at our park that bring their kids and stuff like that, and I was honestly expecting them to be more
Channel Rose Death
like
back.
opposed to that, but I think that I don't know. I guess I think they're going to trust in their like monarch to make a good case, and you know, like you can have your local champion like put in a good word too, and like write a letter of recommendation or something, you know, to allow those kids to play. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's generally pretty obvious where the line gets drawn. You know, if you have a 13-year-old that you know is just like a real tiny person, well, they're probably not going to make it. But if you have a 13-year-old that looks like a 16-year-old, it's going to be, you know, fine.
Yeah, so I pulled up the Appendix 1 Children and Amtgard, and the specific area that is sort of different from what we have right now is, however, so combat in Amtgard is reserved for players of at least 14 years of age. There's no change to that. However, the Council of Crowns may choose to assume responsibility for allowing a child under 14 to engage in combat, provided after evaluation, yada yada yada. So that would, to me, be a majority vote as opposed to a 100% unanimous vote. There was some concern that was raised that the children in Amtgard section is also included in the rules of play, and in the rules of play where we have Council of Crowns, the rules of play appendix say monarch. And so there was some concern regarding whether or not that was an infringement of the rules of play or not.
Okay, I mean that's, I guess, a fair concern. I hadn't heard that one yet, so.
It was posted on the forums, but it hadn't really been widely discussed outside of that forum post. And it was pretty recently posted as well, not during the initial, heavy round of discussion. So to me, as as I look at that, basically we're not changing the ability of an underage player to be included. We're, because of our structure, not putting that sort of responsibility and liability on a single person, but in alignment with our legal and liability structure, it would be with the council. So I'm not sure that actually poses an issue as far as rules of play.
I'm actually chatting with a member of the Amtgard International Board of Directors right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Perfect.
I guess my question would be, you know, is there a precedent set for that sort of rule? Like, I could understand if it were a rule of play change where we're saying, like, no, plate mail is worth 7 points of armor instead of 6, you know, or something crazy like that. But when it's more of like an administrative rule, you know, is there a precedent set for stuff like that being changed at the kingdom or principality level in their specific bylaws.
There are, I don't know if there's any examples that mirror this one directly, but there are plenty of examples where people have made changes to the rules in order to address legal concerns. And I mean, literally, like the plate mail rule. You mean there's places where they won't let you play in the archer class because of concerns, whether it be a direct violation of the law or just concerns they've had with law enforcement, etc.
I actually ran into that in Oregon.
So, I mean, what people need to understand is that the purpose of this rule is so that one person in one park can't put the entire organization at risk.
Yeah, and I can see it. I can see the reasoning behind that too, where, right now there's much less at risk than there could theoretically be with us having 501c3 status and, gambling money and more money in general, more assets and stuff like that. Like there's a lot more on the line. So you want to have more control over what sort of stuff puts all those assets at risk.
Right, and like even now, even without the 501c3, I mean, when you add up the amount of money that's in checking accounts across the principality, I mean, it's like typically right around $10,000, so it's not a non-trivial amount. I definitely anticipate that dollar amount will increase after we have 501c3 and can pursue the charitable gaming license. But I mean, even now, it's I mean, there's assets and money at stake that our members have worked really hard to build up. So I guess the action item for that is to get information from the Amtgard International Board to see if that would cause any type of problems as it pertains to rules of play. And then the other thing would be to, let's talk with our parks to clarify that is a majority vote and not a 100% vote, and see, just open up conversation with members to see if that's where their sort of dissent was based from.
So I'm still waiting on responses, but my position on this is that this is a pretty trivial thing where again, like you said, we're not removing the ability for someone to play. We're just changing the decision maker from one person to a council of people that are all in the same position and actually have liability involved. Like from a legal standpoint, I'm totally comfortable moving forward with this until we're told to stop.
Yeah, I think that with additional clarification, it's likely to not be an issue. But with 11 of our 50 votes being no, I want to make sure that those are the issues that people have. Those are the issues that that have been reported. So I'm assuming that those are the reasons for people voting no. Whether or not that's a safe assumption, I can't say for sure.
Well, I've heard two main reasons for the no votes there. One was because of the thing that Quorum posted, which was they would consider it a breach of contract and we would no longer be playing Amtgard. I think that's kind of silly personally. And then the other was that they just wanted their local monarch to be able to make the decision. They didn't want it to have to be elevated.
Yeah, and I don't know from an organizational liability standpoint that really that the second is an option to have local monarchs have that to be able to put the entire organization in jeopardy with their single decision.
But at the same time, I can kind of understand the point that they're coming from is if a single monarch is making that decision, he can kind of make it at a spur of a moment, make a judge on the cure, sign the waiver, and that person can play that day. But if it has to go to the board of directors, it can wait up to 2 weeks.
Well, here's my question for you, Rosedath. Do you want me making that decision if it could cost you your house?
I think you misunderstand the point that I'm bringing forward. I agree that the direction that we're going is the right direction. I'm just
okay.
understanding the perspective.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
that was kind of 0 to 60 there.
No, sorry. I thought he was arguing the other way, and I was just trying to illustrate what the risks were. So anyway, I just got a response back, and the response I got from the AMCARD International Board of Directors is, I asked them if they would consider that. Oh, I'll read exactly what I wrote here. I wrote that if our Principalities Corpora altered the children in AMCARD policy so that the decision to let an underage player play was made by a council of monarchs rather than a single local monarch, would the AIBOD consider that a breach of contract? And the response I got was probably not, as long as you don't lower the standards.
Yeah, which we certainly would not be doing.
And that's been a pretty universal stance of AMPCARD everywhere, is that raising the standards is fine, that what they put in like corporas and things like that are just basically considered like this is the baseline, is the minimum. And so that's, I guess that's our answer. They're not going to care.
So that's probably an item that we should each, have some discussion in our parks about, just to make sure that those two issues are the issue, the cause of those 11 no votes, and do some education as far as information that we've received from the AMCARD International Board, that we would not be considered in violation of our contract and no longer be playing AMCARD and be risking copyright infringement or any of those concerns that had been raised.
Okay.
And that the issue, one of the things that I had heard was, did the vote have to be unanimous amongst the Council of Crowns? And that, as this is written, it would be a majority vote.
Right, and the reasoning.
Goran,
no, go ahead.
I was just wondering if you could photocopy that chat you had and post it to the Council of Crowns group so we can accurately spread that information.
Doing it right now.
Awesome, that will be super helpful.
Anyway, so the what I was trying to say is that the reason that it's just a standard majority rather than unanimous or whatever is that this boils down to being just, this is a decision of the organization. Whenever the organization needs to make a decision, then the people who are in charge of it make a majority vote, basically. So this isn't considered like the kind of business that the organization takes that would require that higher threshold.
Okay, so that was the one that had the highest dissent. One of the other ones that was pretty high dissent was recognized regions, which I thought was really interesting because we hadn't actually had very much discussion around this section, I think really at any point in time. So I am genuinely curious to hear if anyone has heard anything from members of their parks as to any issues they had with this area. There were 8 no votes for this one.
Nope, I hadn't heard any issues out of Ravenstone for that one at all.
Yeah, none from Astral Winds either.
There were several no votes in Loop of Moon, but I haven't heard anything as to why.
So just looking at what was posted on the forums here, it was saying that if we didn't want a recognized region to be an AMPGuard chapter, then sections B and C were pointless. That 13.4 was directly contradicting sort of the idea that a recognized region would be an AMPGuard chapter. So that was a little confusing to me.
So and that's sort of an interesting thing that we may want to discuss at length, or maybe the next council wants to discuss at length. But so right now, the process we have for Northreach creating a new chapter is that we basically create a freehold. A freehold gets a contract with Amtgard. Freehold then gets a contract with Dragonspine, and then Northreach essentially takes over, even though it was really Northreach the whole time. And the reasoning for that is that that's just the process that Burning Lands has always used, and that's just what they were comfortable with. But given the new structure that Amtgard has with the international board of directors and a professional group of people who are interested in looking at these processes and finding ways, that aren't necessarily just quote unquote the way we've always done it, that there may be some approaches where, you can be recognized as an Amtgard chapter without having to be like a separate legal organization.
So that may be something that, can use some further, clarification or fleshing out as the sort of Amtgard-wide processes become also clearer and more fleshed out. Had anybody heard anything additional as far as issues with that section?
Negative.
Okay, so all right, so we've got a little bit of digging to do on that one to understand it a little bit more. There was one other one that was sort of a high dissent, and that was the elections section, which received 9 no votes. This is another one that really prior to the vote, there hadn't been a lot of talk about this section as being problematic as far as content or intention. Really, the big thing that I saw as I was reading through the comments on the forums was a question regarding how many times you could take a Corpora or Reeves test, how much time needed to be between each test, and some other sort of small questions on phrasing, basically, as far as timing of tests and whatnot. So I think what this one needs is just some clarification and wording, as opposed to, I didn't see anything here that called for an overhaul or anything like that, but that it wasn't completely smooth yet. Had anybody heard anything else about the election section?
No, I hadn't.
Nope.
Okay, and I lied. There was one more section that had a high dissent vote, and that was vacancies and pro tem officers. That had 10 no votes. And honestly, I'm at a loss on this one as well. There'd been very minimal discussion regarding any issues with this section. So if anybody else has info, that'd be great.
There was some, I think the only issue I heard, and I kind of heard it, like just overheard it, was something about the board appointing members, which to a vacant position, which I don't think the people that were discussing it understood that was like the safety net. That's what happens when there's basically no one else to appoint somebody.
Right, that was like the very last ditch, like there's nobody else to take care of this, so somebody has to appoint somebody.
And actually the board doesn't actually appoint it, the board just holds an all thing to appoint somebody. And that was really under only, I think, Monarch. And so the reasoning for that, if for those following along at home, is that under this proposed corpora, your monarch is a member of the board of directors. And in our legal paperwork, our board of directors has to oversee that appointment process to some degree. So it's still a membership vote. It's still an all thing. It's just that the board of directors oversee it so that they can make sure that we're in compliance with any state laws or any IRS stuff or anything we have to do right that they would actually be responsible for.
Channel, Siggy Cod, I like that rule actually.
So maybe there's some education there as far
Channel,
as
Siggy Cod, high saving.
discussion on that topic. But again, I didn't see anything that was brought up that was, you know, a very clear, absolutely no way. This is exactly what needs to change. So everything else. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's sort of where I'm at too, where I requested specifically of my members that voted no. I said, please, please, please explain to the council why you voted no so that we understand and can do, address things that need to be addressed. Other than the post that Corin made, there really hasn't been much. And so I don't know if it's something that people feel strongly about or if they were just said, well, this is put in front of me as it is. I'm not super on board with it. And they just kind of voted no. But I haven't heard any alternatives or any, anything specific that needs to be addressed other than what Corin posted. And it could be that just everybody that voted no is on board with exactly what Corin posted.
Right. So, the whole point of doing the section by section vote was to understand, where the support was for what we had done so far and where we needed to put additional resources and time into looking at, if we had any basic concepts that just membership as a whole wasn't in support of. And I guess what I'm left with as I'm looking at it is like there's, maybe 3 or 4 sections that had high dissent rate, and high being, none of them were even over 20%. But it's a little unclear on those areas exactly, what the areas are that cause that no vote. So I'm looking for, what's the best way for us to move forward and make sure that what we're presenting for, final approval is in alignment with, membership wishes. And do we think we're there? Or, do we need to push more on those like 4 high dissent areas?
Well, I think that the response we got from the AIBOD covers 2 of those sections, right?
Yeah, I think so. Basically, we've gotten the nod from AIBOD that says, no, this would not endanger you at being in violation. You would not lose your contract. You would not be in violation of copyright.
Right. So that just leaves us with the other areas. And then some of those I think were like little wording things I think we just need to kind of clean up or that we can address through a light editing process. And so even with the heavy no votes, we still had 80% yes. And that's pretty strong.
Yeah, I agree. The one item with 11, the very heaviest dissent, we still had 80% agreement. So, to me, that feels, when we're talking about, we have over 100 voting members, between 40 and 55 participated in this vote, and of them 80 to 100% were in support of each item.
Right. And since none of us have really been approached with any kind of feedback, to me that seems like maybe the people that voted no don't feel super strongly about it. That's their personal opinion.
How does everybody else feel about it?
Yeah, I made sure when we were going into the voting process to explain to people, read them the message that you had said, where basically we were talking about this is about intent. You know what I mean? So if you don't like the intent of this section as far as like how the organization should be governed, then like now is the time to bring that up. But if you don't like the intent of it and you don't explain why, it's really hard for us to fix it. So I know what people voted no on at my park. We talked about that already, but if you voted no on one of these other sections, like we need to know how you like what it looks like in a perfect solution in your head so that we can try to find maybe your perfect solution is better than the one that we came up with, or maybe we need to find a middle ground, but we have to have input, you know what I mean? So just encourage people to speak up in whatever way they find the most convenient / least intimidating.
And I agree with Mini Bart there. Maybe we need to put a stronger shout out for people to give us feedback on those subjects.
Yeah, I've been super busy at work, so I've been a little passive on this. I posted their results and added it to the sections, but I didn't go through and like forcefully direct people to look at that and give me their opinions and feedback. So my next couple weeks at work are going to continue to be sort of crazy. So if there is someone else on the council who would like to champion that and really get the ball rolling on that discussion, that would be really great, because I mean, we want that information sooner rather than later to know if we need to do any, sort of heavier massaging of things.
I can get that going.
That would be great, because that will really help us move forward in a more efficient manner.
Yeah, if you need help setting up some sort of like anonymous form or poll or something like that so that people can contribute if they don't feel comfortable, letting people know who they are, then let me know, Rose Dad, I'll give you a hand.
Cool, will do.
Awesome. So I'm gonna leave the corpora review status / June all thing topic. Unless there was something else that you guys wanted to chat on about that. We'll sort of revisit it when we talk about the July all thing.
As far as like the June all thing in general, I had a couple people at my park ask about suspension or ban like appeals, and we went back and looked, and neither of the like petitions for members of my park, specifically Dieter, and then also Mark Lorkowski, I'm probably butchering his last name, but neither of them got the necessary signatures. So it was apparent why they didn't make it on there, but maybe there needs to be some sort of like, when those petitions are submitted, is that purely to have them on the next all thing? And so if it doesn't make it by the next all thing, they kind of get like, you're like, okay, nope, we got to start over again. But they just kind of felt like they slipped through the cracks, and so they were like, oh well, I didn't know that they didn't get enough or whatever. And I understand that's up to the people that are wanting that change to happen, but maybe some feedback from the council or the prime ministers or whoever that are managing those petitions would be good to let people know, like, well, this didn't pass, you guys need to start up a new one or whatever.
Sure. So yeah, definitely. So there were a couple different things that the petitions were put out there for signatures, but they weren't like submitted ever. Like nobody so the way that it worked for the other two that were added to the agenda is someone put them forth, and then they gathered signatures, and then when they felt that they had enough signatures, they submitted it to myself, and I had well, they submitted it by saying, hey, I'm submitting this for, inclusion. And then I had the Prime Minister, Aurora, double check that it had enough signatures of active and that they were all eligible to be on that petition. And then they went from there. So there's a couple different things, is that the other two petitions were never officially submitted. And I was watching them very carefully to see if they got to that point of having enough signatures, so that if they had gotten to the point of having enough signatures and it was never submitted, that I could reach out and say, hey, did you want to submit this, because it's probably eligible. And then that's also part of it, posting the all thing agenda a week in advance, so that all membership across the principality had an opportunity to see what exactly is and also is not on the agenda. I mean, I would be happy in the future to call out specifically, I guess, when I post the agenda, that the following items were not added to the agenda. However, there's a lot of things that don't get added to the agenda, right?
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I'm not sure like what the answer looks like. You know what I mean? But um, that was just giving you feedback from people that I had like that I have brought forward to me. You know.
Totally. And we're still sort of working out that process, right? I mean, like, heck, 2 months ago we didn't even know how to submit a petition outside of, like, your plain old paper petition. So we're definitely working out the kinks in that. And that feedback can definitely be used to make the process better in the future, for sure.
And those of you out there listening, give us input so that we can fix it and make it more better.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it didn't occur to me that that's something that should be publicly I sort of announced, as far as items that were not added to the agenda. But if people find that useful, I would be happy to do that in the future. Okay, so moving on to our second item. Yay! As just a quick recap of the Highland Games 2016. Rage was our autocrat for that, so I'd like to turn it over to her to give us a little recap on how everything went.
Hey guys, I talked about this a little earlier. This is our first year doing the Celtic Highland Games. We put it out there from Ravenstone that, hey, Northreach should do this because it's awesome. And it turned out that it was a little more awesome than we expected. We did a fair amount in sword sales as well as arena sales. The fair coordinators liked us so much they want to put us on the main thoroughfare next year. We were on the back half next to the bungee jump, but we still got a lot of people lined up waiting both days, even in the rain, just to come play and to buy swords. And it was a really wildly successful event, and thank you to everyone who participated in it. We could not have done it if we did not come together as Northreach. But I think it will be definitely fruitful and worth our while to do this next year.
I 100% agree with that. It was an excellent event. It seemed to go off without a hitch. I was there on Saturday. It was a great group of people. The public and crowd at the event were super welcoming and very excited that we were there. The organizers were really excited. To me, it was a great showing of Northreach. We've formed some really good relationships for moving forward with the organizers of that event. Rage and Danica did a great job. It was fabulous. The Ravenstone volunteers
Yeah, I
were
couldn't do it without Danica's scheduling.
yeah, she was awesome for all the scheduling and like
Yeah.
coordinating little things. It was awesome. So you guys as a team really pulled that off really nicely.
Well, thank you very much. But we could not have done it without the support of Northbreach, and I think that Hanlon and I got some really good ideas for the booth for the fair. We talked about maybe putting up a tower at the corner so we could usher people in and like stand up over the crowd and wave at people so that they notice that we're there, because we were in the same spot for the state fair that we had at Celtic Highland Games. So I think that would be a great idea for the state fairs to put up one of the towers for the castle.
Yeah, I totally agree. It worked really well for us at the state fair last year. We had 2 towers set up and had people standing up there, and it was great. It was definitely a profitable event, so that was awesome. Right? That's always good. And I definitely think it should be on our plan for summer 2017.
Definitely. Like I said, we had run out of swords that were already, their pommels and handles were covered, so we were covering them as people were buying them on Sunday, which is why there are some pink and yellow handles out there that probably need to be a little fixed.
Thumbs up.
But that's as many swords as we sold. So we ran a little low, as you guys probably found out when you picked stuff up.
That was great. I love picking up less than I dropped off.
Definitely.
So the next item that we have is Kenai Peninsula Fair 2016. Sora is autocrating that, and she's autocrating the poop out of that. I've set up a Trello board with her, and she's utilizing that for organization. We were able to increase the space that we have for our booth, so we have a 20 by 30 space, which is slightly smaller than we've had at some other events, but I think should be fine, seeing as she has got us all over that fair, all over the schedule. We have time on the small stage. We have 45-minute like demonstrations in an area, and then I think we're maybe the halftime show for the rodeo. Rosedath, do you know about that?
All that she's told me is that they're making flyers for us. So I'm hearing this and I'm going, woohoo.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, she's getting us everywhere there. I mean, it will be so much AmpGuard at that fair. I'm super, super excited. Oh, and it's free, right? Like, we're not paying anything to be there. They're super excited to have us there. So that event should likely be fairly profitable since there will be literally zero expense. And we should get some really awesome recruitment out of that. Wolf's Cry 2016, everybody knows that we moved the dates up, so it is now the last weekend in July, so July 29th, 30th, and 31st. It is at the State Fair. It is on the State Fair proper, so we're no longer in the Robarchek field, which means we will have access to whooshing toilets and power and a giant pavilion. Talon is autocrating that, and he is assembling his team. Tickets are posted and available for pre-sale for both Mammoth and general admission and 13 and under. They are getting the schedule together. There will be a bunch of meals included this time around. So
I have to say that I saw the site and I am damn impressed. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it's I think gonna be really cool. It will also make logistics for providing food for everybody a lot easier. And no porta potties. Yay!
Are we doing a liquor license again this year? A lot of people have been asking me, are we actually going to have the tavern up and running for this event?
If we do not want it to be a dry event, we have to. The state fair requires that we have a special events permit in order to have any alcohol on site at all, and that is because they have very strict site rules regarding alcohol control and consumption. I think that with what we learned from Solstice War, we are in a much better place to move forward with a low to zero incident event. And I think we'll be okay with that. The board of directors does need to hold a vote to approve that to occur at the event. So I suppose it's possible that our board of directors could vote that down. We were supposed to have a board meeting last week, but only 2 board members showed up. So that didn't happen, and it's being rescheduled. This year, we've also appointed a boozocrat, so someone whose sole job is to organize all of the logistics for alcohol-related topics at the event, and the person who has volunteered for that is a bartender. So he's pretty keen on making sure that that all goes well, because if it doesn't, he could lose his job, and he's really familiar with all of the rules, so he's a really good person to have in charge of that.
Being a real bartender, it's too bad we can't serve actual liquor. Could have some Northreach themed cocktails.
We can totally do anything with beer and wine, but no hard alcohol. We just have to get creative.
Let's mix it.
Right?
I call this the Frozen Coast. It's just 6 beers.
Woo!
Well, if Moloch is there, I think
No,
it's
I've
more like
already invented the
12
Frozen
beers.
Coast, and it involves blue curacao, peach schnapps, Midori, and Red Bull. And it looks blue and green, and it's got the separation. It's cool.
That even sounds cool.
It's
would have-
delicious and dangerous.
That would have to be at a non-special events permit event.
Like
Yes.
Solstice Wars.
So, Solstice Wars next year.
There you go. Okay, so that's the update on Wolf's Cry. That's moving along really well. I'm super excited about it.
Awesome.
The next thing on the agenda is the Tanana Valley Fair, and that needs an autocrat, and I kind of begged Minibard to do it, but I think he's kind of not gonna do it. Is that true?
Well, I'm just saying, like, I'm more than happy to do it, but I am concerned that I have other obligations in the weeks, like, both for work and traveling down to Clan, like, in the weeks prior, that I will not be able to do a good job. So I'm going to be, like, traveling for work and then traveling for Clan and so on and so forth, which may lead to me being not in town very much and not able to communicate effectively with all the other volunteers that offer to help, and then also with the fair officials.
Gotcha. So we need to be looking for someone in the Astral Winds area who would be willing to head that up and will be available. It's possible for someone to do not from the Astral Winds area, but that's really less than ideal. I mean, you guys are up there, you know the people involved. It's a much better fit if it's a local person heading that up. So if you could talk to your peeps and see if anybody's interested / willing to head that up. I am super happy to be as supportive as possible. I will also be at Clan, the 2 weeks before that. So my communication may be a little less than ideal, but I will be up there the very first weekend of the fair, so I can assist with setup and things like that. So there will be lots of support. But that's something we need to do kind of pronto-ish. So yeah, so if you could talk to your peeps this weekend and please have anybody contact me who's interested, that would be great. I'll also post on Facebook.
I totally will. And I don't want you to, like, Northreach to perceive me not being like, I'm going to do it, as me thinking we're not going to get adequate support from Northreach. I want to make sure that it's awesome because, Astral Winds really needs it. We need the people and so on and so forth. Player 2 has joined. Sabin has volunteered for Autocrat.
All right, Sabin, shoot me a message. Let's chit chat.
Nice.
My man.
Go Sabin.
Cool. So the next thing, I'm kind of jumping around in our agenda. I apologize. The next thing was Alaska State Fair. That also needs an autocrat. So just putting that out there. I will also post that on the Facebooks so that we can start to get people thinking about that. Our site's already secured. The contract is already secured. It's already paid for. We have a pretty good formula for these types of booths and events at this point in time. So it's not necessarily like the biggest thing is coordinating volunteer hours for Tanana Valley Fair and the Alaska State Fair. But like we have the booth, we have the formula. It's just coordinating the people to do it. So
I don't volunteer to be the autocrat, but I do volunteer to be there.
okay. Well, that's super important too.
And as far as I know, I should be able to do like staying on site for a couple of days at a time too.
Cool. That's awesome. I think it's good to break that up so we don't overtax, a small group of people having to stay there the whole time, but sort of break it up between a bunch of different people. That'd be potentially less taxing.
No, for sure, definitely on that one.
Okay, so we already covered June all thing. The next thing that I have is month of the crown / elections. Is everybody on track, and is anybody having difficulties organizing, scheduling, wrangling, crown quals, Reeve and Corpora certification, elections, things like that? So hearing no issues, that means that everybody's park is on track and squared away and ready to go.
Yep, we're getting tests and everything done this month, as of tomorrow.
Is anybody having issues getting well, first off, does everybody have identified who's running your crown quals?
I am.
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, Kira, aka Danica, and James, aka Aro, are running ours.
Is Danica running for GMR? Oh,
yes,
never mind.
but she doesn't have to
Yes.
enter anything, so
I just realized that. I was like, never mind.
just kidding.
Minibard, is the Astro Winds set to go there?
We haven't specifically discussed who would be doing it, but I think that by the people that are running again and entering things, it should technically fall to our GMR as well. But I will talk to him and make sure that that's a thing that he's prepared to do this weekend or
Is
before.
Gwen running?
She is not, but I believe she's entering things in Crown Calls specifically so that she doesn't have to run it. That's not actually true. It's because she wants to, get cool awards and stuff. But it's fun to make fun of her, so.
Gotcha.
You mean she doesn't have them all already?
Okay, and then Rose Dath, yours is easy, right? I'm running it. Although it's easy. Easy and not easy because of park location. Did you hear anything back from Kenai about access to the park that we were initially going to use?
I've been a lazy monarch. I will tell you that right now. But I've been pretty preoccupied with our event that we just had down here. I will make sure to put that on my agenda. Let's see, what is tomorrow? Friday. So they'll be open. I'll be able to call them then, and I will get back to you on that.
Okay, that would be great. Because if we're not going to have access to that park, and the nice big pavilion there, we'll need to find something. An alternative.
Yeah, like I said, if that's not able to happen or we can't get into that park, our old park that we used to meet at Beaver Creek Loop, it does have a pavilion that we could use. By that time, Frozen Coast will also have a pavilion that we can use. We're purchasing one for the 4th of July from the budget. So we'll have plenty of cover. But I will call and see if we can get in South Forest.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, just keep me posted on that. I think that's the only thing that's really outstanding for that one. So, okay. Month of Crown, Alaska State Fair. Membership issues. Were there any membership issues that we needed to follow up on in any parks?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Hallelujah, it's a miracle I can die happy.
We can make some up if you want.
No, shut up. Okay, that takes us to the close of our old business. New business is the July All thing. So the first thing that I want to do is talk to you guys about moving the July All thing to the 3rd weekend of July, which would make it coincide with the elections. It seems silly to try to vote on the July All Thing on the same weekend as most people are having crown quals, and then have an election the very next weekend. Does anyone see a problem with that? That would also put it exactly 1 month after our previous All Thing, as opposed to 3 weeks, which would be great for getting things ready.
I'm sorry, I missed the day. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it?
No, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, so elections would be what is it, the 16th and 17th of July? So I'm proposing that we would align the July All Thing to also be the 16th and 17th.
I think that's super reasonable.
Agreed.
Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and change that on the calendar, and we will hold the July All Thing on the third weekend of July, which would be the 16th and 17th, to coincide with elections, so we just do it all at once. The only thing that we all need to be aware of then is that because elections will be held on that same weekend, no dues can be collected that weekend. So we need to all really, really be sure that on the next 2 weekends, we're really making it clear to our membership that if they want to be able to participate in the election and the All Thing, they'll need to pay their dues no later than the weekend of the 9th and 10th. I really don't want it to be a situation where somebody, really wants to participate in the All Thing, but they can't because they haven't paid their dues a week in advance to allow for the election schedule. So if we're all really aware of that and we really stress it to our parks for the next 2 weekends, I think we should be able to avoid any issues there. I will also take an action item to be sure that I post that to Facebook, and I will remind our Chancellor's Council to also be really aware of that and to be educating members often.
Cool beans.
Okay, so then as far as items for the July All Thing, there are currently the 2 petitions which have not been submitted yet that could be submitted at any time. If they garner enough signatures, so those are still sort of outstanding. I don't necessarily consider them to be sort of dead until they're submitted. Does anybody, I mean, they're still sort of working passively. So those are potentials. And then for the July All Thing, I would really, really, really like to have a final version of the bylaws and admin manual for a final vote, because it will be the last All Thing of this reign, and that would leave the next reign coming in with all of this closed and taken care of. So what that means is it's really important that since Rosedath stepped up and said he would be willing to sort of push for the feedback on these items, that we do that over this 4th of July so that we can have that information to post a new draft like no later than like July 6th or 7th. Does that seem feasible to you guys? Or am I pushing it too hard?
No, I think that's totally feasible.
It doesn't take much to make a post.
Minnie, Rage, you guys want to weigh in on this?
I'm sorry, I was typing in Trello again and kind of missed out on half of what you were saying. I'm a bad monarch.
Trello?
I'm actually preparing a post about that right now to post on Ravenstone, so I totally agree and I'm backing it.
Could you give me like a one sentence recap?
Yeah, so I would like to do the final approval of the bylaws and admin manual in the July All Thing. So I'd like to have like sort of all feedback garnered no later than like, the 5th or 6th, and have a final draft posted by like the 6th or 7th, so that there's plenty of time for feedback and typo edits and whatnot, so that when we get to the 16th and 17th, Like, that's it. That's the final approval. The final for realsies. Done, put to bed. Let's adopt this thing.
Well, so that's what I was going to say. Right? Do you mean final approval or do you mean ratification?
Is there a difference?
Like, yeah, to me, like, approval would be like, yep, okay, we're happy with the content of this and so on and so forth, and ratification is us saying, like, okay, as an organization, like, we adopt this thing, and it now is what we use to govern ourselves.
And Rage, if you are posting that, please tag me so I can get any concerns that are brought forward together and bring those to Goran.
Because I believe there are special rules for voting for ratification, too.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Rose Death.
You're probably right. So maybe what we do is we have the approval, and then we schedule a ratification vote at Wolf's Cry.
I think that could be cool as long as we, allow for people that can't attend to vote, obviously. But I'm sure that would be a thing.
Yeah, I think we could totally do that. I mean, because you could still vote in your local park, and we can electronically communicate with one another, so we could have the results like pretty pronto. And then that'd be a great thing for the incoming councils to like be starting off their reign under the new documentation.
That'll be an adventure.
Yes, it will. It is my gift to Lucian.
It's like one of those prank birthday cakes with the candles that don't blow out.
Maybe. Okay, so that is the timeline that I'm gonna really try to run with, is that we really push over the next, 5-6 days to get to see what feedback we can get. Maybe the information that we have, talked about already, has resolved most of the no votes, sort of satisfied whatever, issue people had with them, maybe not. But then that by Thursday of next week, we could have a cleaned up, sort of typo-free, wordsmithed version, so that we've got over a week of review by membership before we get to an approval vote. And then 2 weeks after that, we would have a ratification vote at Wolf's Cry. That's how I'm moving forward with that. Woot!
Will the approval vote be like a single, like, yep, we like this, or is it going to be itemized again?
Please, God, just one vote.
I mean, I'm with you. I just want to make sure that I know what to tell people.
I'm with Goran on that. Please, just one vote. That was a lot of items.
I honestly think we need to ask membership. I mean, I'm super happy to have like a one vote yay or nay, right? But if membership still wants to be able to have that granular ability to comment on it, I think that we have to do that. And maybe membership doesn't want that, right? But I think we need to ask them.
Yeah, no, that's.
Well,
that's
I think
totally true.
we just did.
That's true. Maybe we just re-vote on the items that were identified as high dissent.
If we even need to do that, I mean, even the high dissent ones, we had 80% approval. I mean, I think that we can reasonably, as a council, responsibly address the concerns that need to be addressed, and then bring a completed package back. And if people don't like it for one item in there, they can still vote no, and they should if that's how they feel. But I think that we've kind of beaten that to death at this point.
I agree with Goran. 80% is very, very good.
Well, I mean, just to point out, so like right now, changing the corpora that we currently possess requires a supermajority, so a 2/3 vote, 66%. Like 80% is good, but it's close,
No, that's not close. Overwhelming.
It-
I mean, we could have, based on the vote we have right now, we could ratify this thing.
I agree with you, but like, if more people turn up and we're like have this section, I'm not saying like I think we should do it. I think we should move with the path or move with this plan. But 66% and 80% are not that far apart if you add another 10 voting members of people that may or may not be in favor of it because they show up to be upset. So I'm just saying that
if they follow the trend of everybody else, then 8 of those 10 would vote yes.
They sure might.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and if we as monarchs do not give the voice to our people, then we're just blindly following things, and that's not the way my park has generally been. As a representative of the people, we need to make sure that everybody's voice is heard.
Oh no, I maybe you're misunderstanding me. I believe that we need to respect our people's opinions, and when they give it to us, we don't keep coming back to them over and over and over again to say, "Are you really sure?"
That's true. I mean, if you think about it that way, 80% of our membership has said, yeah, we're cool with this. And now we would come back to them and say, hey, you people, tell us again that you're really cool with this.
Right. Like, how many times do we need to do that before we can safely assume that they're actually cool with it? Like, do we not trust the vote that just happened? And if so, is it appropriate for us to second guess it?
No, I personally think, and I believe that me and Goran are on the same page here. We've received at least 80% in agreement with how it's written at the moment. I think if we lightly edit some areas that have been brought up, and like I'll be getting people's input on this, and after we lightly edit it, I think we should just move with the final draft. I mean, once we touch up what has been brought to us, there shouldn't be any issues.
I can get behind that. And Minibard, maybe what's helpful for us to do this weekend is to, sort of ask our peeps, like, what are you guys interested in? You want to just do this all one, or you want to hash it out again? I don't know. I mean, I don't think any of us are really looking forward to another 31 item agenda.
No, totally not. And again, I'm not. I'm 100% all about moving forward with the plan that you proposed, which is like make the changes that we want to make as a result of like the votes and that we had the last all thing and any other like touching up and wordsmithery and so on and so forth. Approving that draft and saying like, yep, everything in here looks legit. There aren't any glaring typos, etc., and then ratifying it. But I guess unless you guys are proposing that the ratification and the approval of that final draft should be a one vote.
Oh no, it's okay if they be separate.
Oh, okay.
That's what Adeline proposed.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it. I'm on board. I was just
break it down into multiple like 9 item votes.
I totally agree. I was just saying numbers. You know what I mean? I was like, there.
Roger.
Yeah. We require at least a supermajority.
After we get the feedback from the people on why they voted the way they did, I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't hold it up and just go for the big bang.
All right, so at this point in time, let's move forward with that idea that we'll garner feedback, we'll make those changes, and we'll have the all thing as one approval or for the July all thing, and then we will later have the ratification at Wolf's Cry. One item, yay or nay?
Yeah, I second that.
Excellent. Okay, so that is what I have for the open session business. At this point in time, I'd like to move us to Council Room 2 for closed session business to discuss awards.
Cool.
So thank you to everyone who attended this evening. Thank you to everyone who is listening on YouTube or is here in the spectators and discussion area. Super appreciate your involvement and your active interest. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Yep. Good night, Northreach.
Nighty-night.